So
I was thinking this on the plane, linking to the thing I said before about how connecting this personal growth to the idea of the logos was really powerful, and reframing this, and I've heard you speak about this in a certain way as almost like a heroic mission. That you take on ultimate responsibility for your words, you take on responsibility for moving the world either closer or further from chaos. That this is a really...
you take on responsibility for moving the world closer to heaven or hell.
And this, I was thinking how powerful a doctrine of, I've always thought, I've made a few documentaries about ISIS before, and how seductive a worldview that is.
Right.
You can either be a shelf stacker in Wolverhampton,
Exactly.
or you're on the front line fighting for your culture in an existential conflict for the future of the world.
Right.
So what I find powerful, and I only really thought this the last few days, is your message almost allows you to reframe your own life in that same heroic way. And it feels like something like that is essential.
It is essential
for us to fight back against those kind of ideologies.
There's no doubt about that, and it's for the reason that you just laid out. It's like you take a tough 17-year-old kid, you know, who's rebellious enough not to fit well into the, you know, the extra domesticated school systems that we impose on our children. You know, most of my friends, because I lived in a working class town, most of my friends dropped out of school before grade 10, and I wouldn't say it was the least admirable kids who dropped out. You know, these were guys who pretty much physically matured at 15 or 16. Some of them were pretty big and strong. And like they were done with putting up their hand to go to the bathroom. They were just done with that. And the fact that they left school, you know, it was a bad long-term decision, maybe for many of them. I mean, a lot of them went and worked on the oil rigs and made a fortune, but they never kept any of it. But they didn't drop out of school only for weakness and failure, you know. And so there has to be a challenge put forward to those people who are inclined in that aggressive competitive direction, or they will fall prey to, well, you mentioned that, you know, why would people go fight for ISIS? Well, you just said why. And you can't really understand that unless you can allow yourself to imagine how you could be attracted to that. And the shelf stacker versus the heroic desert warrior, I mean, you know, it's an illusion. And it's a dangerous one. And it's being utilized in a very manipulative manner by the people who are pushing this. But you always have to give the devil his due.
And do you think we need a heroic story of our own to combat it?
Well, what do you have otherwise? You know, you have a life of pleasure seeking. You have no admiration for yourself if you live a life like that, right? There's contempt, there's self-contempt that's going to build. Or engagement in things at a trivial level, which isn't useful, because in the final analysis, whatever your life is, it's not trivial. The suffering makes it not trivial as a baseline. You're stuck with a certain number of profound experiences, and all of them can be negative if you don't. All of them can be negative if you let the default manifest itself. But you don't get trivial, because you have to encounter your own death and the death of everyone around you and the horrors of the world. And so there's no trivial response that doesn't subject you to that with no defense and then embitter you. So yeah,